This is Jason. Thank you for watching with my buddy Chris. First video we're doing today to discuss a little bit about who we are, what we're about, what the channel is going to be about, and just let you know a little bit about us, I guess. So I'm a product of the 80s. I grew up watching movies in the 80s. I loved cinema, and I've followed that passion all the way through 2022. And as a kid growing up, I think I kind of experienced cinema the way a lot of 80s kids did, through the VHS mom and pop stores. And my parents kind of let me watch whatever I wanted. They took us to the movies. And so I got to really experience a lot of, being able to go to that video shop and say, I want this, this, and this, looking at the box work, the artwork off the VHS, and taking that home and watching that movie. And that just really fueled my passion for cinema and films. And it got me to be where we are at today with Chris. And so we talked about this in the past, and we talked about maybe doing something together. My love for cinema and movies goes all genres. I like everything. I could watch a grindhouse exploitation film. I could watch the most recent big budget Hollywood movie and all the things in between. I like to have a good time. I like to learn about what's going on behind the scenes. A lot of times, even more, and that's more important to me sometimes, than what's actually going on in front of me. So I love learning about directors, cinematographers, how the movies are made, learning about the actors and actresses in the films, and if I like their work, follow their work over the years that they've done. But that's kind of a little bit about me and about what I'm into. I want to throw it back to Chris, and Chris, talk a little bit about that yourself, about where you were in the past with how you got here today.
All right. So yeah, like Jason, I am also a child of the 80s. I'm just not quite as old as he is. But I'm a Xennial, which is this weird anomaly that exists between Gen X and millennials. It was like from some say it's 1978 to 1982, and others say it's 1980 to 1985. So in any case, yeah, I grew up in kind of was groomed into the analog, or I was born into the analog era, and transcended into the digital era, and that's kind of why that generation is the way it is. But I had a lot of the same experiences. Going to the video store. I just saw that the last Blockbuster, that was really good. Brought back a lot of memories. But yeah, I definitely miss the mom and pop shops. But I was always brought up on movies, either VHS, Betamax, or my grandparents had a laser disc, which is not something you see every day.
Oh yeah, laser disc. That was the 4K of that time.
I don't deep dive movies as much as Jason does. I like movies, and I have an opinion, and that's kind of why I'm here.
And the one thing I want to talk about, being a Gen Xer as myself, I was born in the 70s. And the thing about me growing up in that time, and I think for anybody who grew up in that time, was that nothing was really off limits. I felt like, with the way you grew up, your parents let you view and watch a lot of things maybe they shouldn't have. You were able to access a lot of stuff that that would be difficult to access now, unless you have, I guess you're a kid and your parents let you do whatever you want online. I guess there's a difference there. But I feel like back then it was a lot different. Like, you weren't as sheltered as I feel like a lot of times kids are nowadays. And so your parents were a lot more apt to let you just kind of watch what you want. So I remember, like, on my 7th birthday, my dad bought me for Christmas A Clockwork Orange and Fright Night in 1985. So let's just say I've had a pretty a large, expansive knowledge of cinema and willing to watch anything since I was a kid. I mean, that definitely is not movies you'd watch as a 7-year-old or whatnot. But I got those on VHS. And I just have always loved cinema. And the mom and pop stores, and I'm from Southern Indiana, and there was a local franchise called Roadrunner Video. My dad was friends with the owners, with the guys who helped run it. And we used to go in there, and I remember you could get 10 movies for $10 or something like that. And we would go in there, and me and my brother, who's just a few years younger than myself, we'd go in and, like, I don't know about you, Chris, but we would go straight to the horror section. Every time we go into the VHS store, we go straight to the horror section, and we would go through and pick out different movies. So the only movie my dad ever said that we could not watch because he said my mom would kill him was the movie called Faces of Death, which was supposed to be real people getting killed on camera. But lo and behold, that was not actually really the case. It was all made up. But they sold it as real animals being killed on camera and real people being killed on camera. But a lot of that was all manufactured. It was all special effects or whatnot. That wasn't necessarily true, but that was one of the big selling points. So, you know, we could have watched that because it was banned in 44 countries or whatnot. So my dad was like, we can't watch that movie. But anything else was pretty much on the table. And, you know, we would get together. And that brought me to where I'm at today. I've done film conventions. I've done, autograph shows. I've done shows all around the United States and the Midwest going. I remember watching in a small theater in Jeffersonville, Indiana, where I'm from originally, called the Jeff Ford Plaza, Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction when it first came out. Things like I remember watching in the 80s with my dad, you know, Star Wars, Part 2, Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi, and things of that sort. So, I mean, E.T., all those things. I remember having those experiences. It's a really cool experience. So I do enjoy that. I was going to ask you real quick, Chris, what is your first cinema movie experience that you remember? Yeah, no matter what it was, do you remember the first movie you ever sat down and watched in the movie theater, even if it was much later in life?
In the movie theater, the earliest memory would probably be Home Alone.
Yes.
I don't remember going to the movies a lot when I was younger. I was born in Pontiac, Michigan, and lived there until about 1989, I think. And then we moved to just outside of Lansing, Michigan. And that's really when my first memories of going out and doing things like that are, but that's the one that stands out the most in my mind. I would say the first movie I remember overall was probably Rocky IV.
Rocky. Yeah, that's a good one. Well, at least it wasn't Rocky V, thank God, because that would have been a horrible movie experience watching that. So let me ask you this. You talked about the Blockbuster movie documentary you watched, which I've always hated Blockbuster because they came in like Walmart and destroyed all the mom and pop businesses. And then they themselves, of course, then went out of business because that's what happens every time because you have no competition. And so you think, you know, when you're the only person left, you're left to your own devices. And then with the world digital change and all that, they couldn't keep up with the change. But did you have a local mom and pop store that you used to hit up? Do you remember the name of that? Or do you remember that first experience or like what you look forward to going to see or doing there?
Yeah, we had, it was called Cole's Corner Video in Perry, Michigan. And it was a little place. I don't remember it being very big. It was like right next to a car wash, you know? Yeah. And, you know, you always had, when you walked straight in, you had the counter, but to the right of that was kind of all the new release stuff. And then it broke it down somewhat by genre, with horror kind of being as you walk in to the right. And then there was the book that unless you were 18, you weren't allowed to look through. But, you know, we always try to take a sneak peek. But yeah, I remember I would always gravitate to the horror section too. I don't know why. But I was always trying to push the envelope with my mom. You know, it's like trying to buy an Iron Maiden album. It's like, can I get this one? No, that's horrible. Can I get this one? No, that's even worse. Power Slave. Let me get this one. And, you know, it didn't have any of the monsters on it. So she let me get Power Slave, you know?
Nice.
So it was how to I would start out bold and then I would just work my way down to something that she would allow me to rent.
Right.
Exactly. What the cover art was and what it was rated. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, and when my dad, it was awesome because we would go and I know the same experience, like when we go to Roadrunner, and there was other video stores that were in my hometown. Like I lived in a town, it's pretty nice size, So we had probably at any given time through most of the 80s and into the early 90s, I guess, like probably I would say 5 or 6 local VHS shops just in my town, and then a couple more chain type video shops. But I remember like the horror section and the action movie section were like the two movies that are the two sections that my brother and I would hit up all the time. And of course we would also do like comedies and things like that, but mostly it was action and horror. And back in the 80s, as anybody who's watched this knows, that was like such a great time to be a boy in America because there was so much stuff for you. So many great shows and movies were being produced and put out there. And it was just awesome. I mean, I just absolutely loved that time. And I have nostalgia for it now. I have very fond memories of it as we even talk about it. I can think about some of these things. So, with that being said, did you ever have any moments in your life that you got together with friends and had like a sleepover party and have VHS and order pizza and just kind of make it a whole night? What were some of those memories like, or what if you remember what you watched or what that kind of experience was?
Well, that was always, it's kind of the highlight of my childhood. One of my favorite things to do. It'd be Friday night and you'd get permission to have friends come over and, mom would take you to the video store and you get to pick out, 2-3 movies for you guys to watch. Yeah. Always get pizza. And I remember she had this huge tablecloth that she'd always put over the carpet and all the kids had to eat on this big table cover. So, we don't get food in the carpet and whatnot. Right. Had the big furniture-esque TV. And then
those big floor models.
Yeah, we had the VHS player, and then we were super fancy and had the VHS rewinder because there was a fee if you didn't rewind the movie. But if you're rewinding the movie in the VHS player, then that's taking up time from watching the other movie. So you had that nifty little machine. You'd put the tape in there and it would pop up when it was done.
Yes.
But no, those are probably some of my fondest memories is that Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah. The memories I have were the same. I mean, we watched so many movies, I couldn't even go into it. But the memories I remember the most would be my dad would tell me and my brother, because we were, like I said, separated by just about a year and a half. And we would have been able to invite 1 or 2 friends over. So it'd be the 4 of us. And my parents would let me and us 3, all 4 of us, go to the VHS store, Roadrunner Video, like I talked about, pick out a couple movies, 2 or 3, like you said. And in my room, with my brothers in my room, we had a TV and a VCR set up in there. So I had my own VCR, my own TV in there. And we would watch movies. And we would order Pizza King pizza, which is an Indiana staple. If you're not from Indiana, you probably don't know what it is. But it's a Pizza King pizza, squared slices of pizza, not triangles, square. And we would have like a big pizza party, and we would watch all these horror movies. Now the cool thing was, I'm sure it wasn't for my friends' parents. Was my parents? I was the family who let the kids watch whatever they wanted. So all my friends wanted to come to our house because there was no censorship. So if they wanted to see the new action movie, the new horror movie, they were like, we're going to Jason's house because we know his mom and dad don't, or especially my dad, doesn't care. Whereas if I went to my friend's house, they'd be like, okay, whatever y'all want in the PG section, y'all want to go get that, you want to go get the new G.I. Joe movie, which is cool, and I loved it. But it didn't really compete with Jason Part 7 or Friday the 13th Part 3 or whatever, Phantasm or whatnot. So it didn't have the same power. But yeah, I mean, those are all great memories as well, for sure. So with that being said, that's a little bit about our backgrounds and kind of what made us the movie fans that we are. But to kind of talk a little bit about what more of this channel is going to be about, from my perspective, like things I'm looking to do. And Chris and I talked about this, but I like the idea. We're talking about maybe doing shows where we're talking about certain lists, like a top 5 list of this or top 10 list of this, maybe favorite directors, favorite genre, certain movies in a genre that we liked, favorite cinematographers, things like that, things that I think that we'll enjoy and we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive. Also, things we're going to talk about is like movies that we really either want to introduce to each other that we have seen, one of us have seen, and we want to introduce it to the other person and get like that honest reaction and thoughts about the movie. But also, I like the idea of us both going into a movie completely blind. We don't know either. None of us know. Maybe it's a movie that we both said we wanted to see at some point. We haven't seen it. So we both can just let that movie wash over us, and then we can talk about it, and you'll get to see that that initial reaction from watching the movie. I don't know about you, Chris, but I think what is your favorite genre of film? If you had to pick a genre that you probably gravitate towards more than another, do you have one that you can say that's mine? That's the genre I enjoy the most.
It's hard. I mean, I think it's kind of a three-way tie between sports movies, psychological thriller, and horror. Those are the three, and then they're psychological thriller and horror are oftentimes one and the same.
Sure.
I've just noticed that it's hard to get a good, consistent, quality product from any three of those at any given time. Because like psychological thrillers, there's only so many that I really, really like. The other ones are just kind of okay. But the ones that I really like, I mean, they're like some of my favorite movies. So,
right.
But I would say overall, if I had to pick just one, it would probably be based on real life event sport movies. Those are probably my favorite movies, like 61 or Fear Strikes
42.
Out. 42 was really good.
Right. Moneyball.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, for me personally, I would say I like subversive cinema. I like exploitation cinema. I'm a big fan of horror as well, but I also like action movies. I want to, even though I know Chris and I will look at cinema quite differently based on even what he said. His is more like real life based stuff, which I agree with to a certain degree. But I like to be taken away from real life for a little bit for 2 hours and go to be transported into a different world. So that's why I like these movies that are so over the top. But I do like reality-based stuff as well. So I agree. I also love documentaries. I think documentaries for me personally, it can be over a topic that I don't have that much interest in, and I still can enjoy the documentary if it's a well-done documentary. So I do enjoy that as well. I think some of the things we also talked about doing on here is, which I like, which I'm looking forward to, is I want to introduce him to a few things that maybe he hasn't seen, because he even said himself earlier on that I'm more a deep dive into all kinds of genres. And, we'll do a lot of the series, like our first video that we've done is going to all be off a serious movie, off of a serious topic. But I also want to do something that's just like ridiculous, like Pink Angels. It's a gay biker movie from the 70s. Like, what is there not like to not like in that situation? So stuff like that would be also something I want to have that experience about, just because it's out there. It's unbelievable. It's something that you would not see in modern society now. Modern movies are not going to be made from stuff like that back in the 70s, the 80s, and things of that sort. Let me ask you this. Growing up in the 80s and in the 90s, and then experiencing life now in cinema, is there anything that you can think of that you would not see in today's movies that you would see plenty of when we were growing up in cinema or TV for that matter? Like, I can think of a couple of top of my head, a few things, but I don't know if anything jumps out to you that you're like, man, I would not be seeing that in today's movies.
Aside from substance?
anything with like the topics, substance, what they were doing in front of the camera, like like anything. I mean, it could be something superficial, it could be something deep.
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing for me is you had so many great movies from the 80s and 90s because they didn't have all of the cinematic possibilities that we have now. So I think that they had to focus more on the story because they were so limited on what they could do visually to some degree.
Yes.
Now, I think Transformers could have been a great movie, but to me, they focused so much on the theatrics of it that the storyline was just kind of, I couldn't get into it.
Sure.
But I'm sure there's a ton of topics that you're not going to get into today, like blaxploitation films and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to have the was it Pam Grier? The Pam Grier movies. You're not going to have the Diane Thorne movies.
You ain't getting those anymore, that's for sure.
No. And I forget who the director was. He did a lot of those female exploitation. Roger Corman.
Oh yeah, Roger. He's still alive. Dude's got to be close to 100 at this point. But yeah. And I think that it's true. Those type of movies. I was thinking even some things that you don't ever see on TV anymore, or in cinema, is that you don't see people smoking anymore. They've taken away people smoking in movies, modern day movies, all the time. And back then, mom and dad was smoking, the teachers were smoking, the doctors were smoking, the kids were smoking, everybody was smoking. You never see that anymore. Any kind of insensitivity words that would be insensitive to people were using in all movies. You know what I'm saying? It was just the way of life, just the way people talk and spoke to one another. All that's been like washed out of that. You're finding it's harder to find like action movies with like guys who actually look like action stars, like manly men or whatever. Now everybody looks like they just came out of like a GQ fashion model shoot, and it takes away from a little bit of the reality of that, stuff like that. So I think that you see that those changes, good or bad or the other, it is what it is. So I do find a lot of things different, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about those things as we go. But I like things that I feel like it's more authentic and real, and not like whitewashed or curated to make this perfect image of what we want it to be like, and cut out all the rough edges. I like things that are a little bit more like what I feel like is real life and what I've experienced. So things like Stranger Things, that TV show, felt real. It felt like it was real. Like it felt like it was really kids in that time, and they didn't try to do it through a 2021 lens. They did it through a 1985 lens, which is awesome. That's what it should have been. But a lot of times you don't see that nowadays, which it kind of takes away from. So yeah, I think that's a lot of what we're talking about, and we're going to do on this channel is like, look at those differences, look at some of the modern day movies, like we did, and then look at movies from years ago, and just kind of take a look at it. And I'm looking forward to that. So anyways, guys, I mean, we could talk about this forever. We'll get more into it later, but we want to kind of just talk a little bit about that, and kind of just a little bit about who we are and how we got here, and a little bit about maybe what you can expect from the channel in the future. Anything you want to part with there, Kimosabi?
No, I'm good.
All right, brother. Well, hey, thank you all for watching, and I look forward to this maybe next episode, right? Shocker.